I call the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. Well, the government had two jobs this year, the vaccine rollout and quarantine. It has botched both. We have a Prime Minister who never accepts responsibility. Too busy rolling out the red carpet for himself to roll out the vaccination for Australians. Not just a government of smirk and mirrors, more a government of shirk and mirrors. It's always someone else's responsibility. And we saw it today when we asked questions at the beginning about the Victorian outbreak and about the connection with the hotel quarantine system that's been established because of the Prime Minister's refusal to establish an appropriate facility. Now, if this Prime Minister has a single Shakespearean quality, it's that he is full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And we saw that again today. He actually had the chutzpah to stand up and say, oh, well, they're attacking the states. This is the guy who had his treasurer stand at this dispatch box and attack the Andrews Labor government. This is a health minister who attacked the Andrews Labor government. This is a Prime Minister who went to Queensland to do two things, to raise funds for the Queensland LNP and to call upon the Palaszczuk government to open the borders, open them up. That's what he did. And then, of course, in Western Australia, he joined with Clive Palmer to say that Mark McGowan was right. Well, I say this, I'm on Mark McGowan's side. This Prime Minister was on Clive Palmer's side. We were told that Australia was at the front of the queue, but we know we're 113th. We were told 4 million Australians would be vaccinated by March. Well, we're almost in June, and we're not at 4 million yet. When the vaccines arrived, the Minister said this. He made it sound like the moon landing. Remember that? The eagle has landed. Well, it was a dodo. It was a dodo bird, not an eagle. Because there we are at the back of the queue. The member for Higgins went further. She went further. She said on Raph Epstein's program that the minister opposite deserved a Nobel Prize. She did. I'm not kidding. More worthy of a booby prize. The mixed messages that we've had out there. We're not in a rush. Nothing to see here. Chill out, peeps. Wait for the next vaccine. That's the message that they've sent out. The PM's messages spin like a weather vane in a tornado. They are different each and every day. No wonder there's so much confusion out there. When we asked about quarantine yesterday, we actually got an answer to the question. For 30 seconds, he took responsibility. He stood up and he said, yes, well, the Commonwealth is responsible for quarantine. Hint, hint, it's the Constitution. And then, though, he then paused and went, but it's the states and territories. There it was, there it was. Now, we know the Melbourne outbreak comes because of hotel quarantine in Adelaide. The people involved survived India okay, unaffected, but they didn't survive the Adelaide quarantine without being infected and without spreading it now around Victoria, with real consequences for human health, real consequences for people's everyday lives, real consequences for our economy. That's why this is not an academic exercise. That's why this government shouldn't shirk its responsibility, which is there. But we see it. They had a report last year from Jane Holton which recommended that they deal with issues like ventilation in hotels weren't appropriate, that they deal with facilities like Exmouth was named. We've had proposals from state governments, like the Palaszczuk government, almost a year ago now, in the third quarter of last year, were advancing proposals outside of Gladstone and, of course, the Toowoomba proposal. What did we get from the Prime Minister? He described Toowoomba as a desert, a place in the desert. Then he said you've got to have quarantine close to airports. I'll give him the big tip. The proposal is Wellcamp Airport. It's actually at the airport where his plane has landed. And then he said it needed to be near health facilities. Well, the Toowoomba Base Hospital is not a bad place. Not a bad place at all. This is a Prime Minister who got confused between Toowoomba and Betoota. Because the Betoota Advocate got it right when they described him as Scotty from marketing. They got it absolutely right. They spent, speaking of marketing, $1 billion on advertising, but they can't get an advertising program for the vaccination rollout right. They can't get it right. They spent $3.8 million on a campaign featuring a milkshake video that was so absurd even the Betoota Advocate couldn't send it up. They could not send it up. Then we have government members such as Senator Rennick yesterday saying this about when he'd be vaccinated. Mate, I'm going to sit back and watch and see how it goes. That's what government members are saying. That's what government members are saying. But of course they have no plan for vaccines, rollout, getting it right. They have no plan for quarantine, that's the states. And of course they have no plan for the economy. This is a government that's high on visibility, low on delivery. They assume closed borders until after the election. Their budget allows for lower wages, low growth, low productivity and lower workforce participation. What a quadrella. Not only are workers' wages due to go down over the forward estimates, we know their taxes will go up. Will go up once the election's over, when the tax offset is withdrawn. All the while racking up $1 trillion of debt, while they actually cut $3.3 billion from infrastructure over the forward estimates. Now, the Prime Minister recently quoted Talking Heads. Now, someone must have given that to him. But what he should have quoted if he's talking about this government is Road to Nowhere, because that's this government. They don't actually have a plan for Australia's future. Labor does. Appropriate quarantine facilities, roll out of the vaccine, manufacture mRNA vaccines here, a proper advertising campaign. For post the pandemic, building back stronger, not just trying to go back to what was there, building back stronger through our National Reconstruction Fund, through the creation of Jobs and Skills Australia, so that we identify the jobs of the future and train Australians for them, including the new Energy Apprenticeships program. Universal affordable childcare to boost productivity and boost the economy and boost women's workforce participation. The Housing Future Fund to not just deal with homelessness, to deal with people escaping domestic violence, to look after our veterans who are sleeping on our streets, but also to create jobs and build our economy. The creation of secure work, dealing with casuals, the gig economy, the gender pay gap. Same job, same pay. When we ask simple questions about that today, two people next to each other doing the same job, $500 a week pay differential, what does the government have to say about it? Nothing. You're in government. They've been in government now for 3 terms. They're shooting for over a decade in office, but they won't take responsibility for anything. And on a day like today, the 4th anniversary of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, if you want to lift Australia up, just get it done. Just get it done. We want an Australia where no one's left behind and no one's held back. What we have from this government is not just a government dominated by climate sceptics. We know as a result of recent decisions they're market sceptics as well. They're prepared to engage using taxpayers' money for any purpose whatsoever. What reform will this government leave after 3 terms? Where's the big vision? Where's the change in the economy, in social policy and environmental policy? And we know this week, we saw with the Prime Minister, he not only doesn't hold a hose, he couldn't hold a nail. He's there with a hammer, pretending to hammer a nail in. There's no nail there. It says it all. It says it all about how fake this government is. Australians have been magnificent during this pandemic and they deserve a government that is better.